By the way, it seems that Paul's only junior had been complaining to others about how poor his leadership was, to the point that he couldn't even consider him a boss. Paul overheard this, and they are currently in the midst of a dispute. He should have known how important it is to take care of your own junior. As for me, I had been offered a position at our overseas headquarters. I had been declining due to the current circumstances and out of consideration for Paul. But I finally decided to take on the opportunity. I'm currently preparing for my transition. I've been causing my father some worry, but we've started practicing video calls so we can keep in touch when I'm abroad. I am content because I'll be able to pursue the job that I have been dreaming of since I was a child. It's time to give it my all. Paul hardly ever helped with household chores, but Michelle didn't mind. When they went out together, Paul always took charge, letting Michelle relax and enjoy herself without any worries. It felt like they had a good balance in their relationship. However, everything changed when Michelle's mother passed away. While Michelle was at work, her father called to tell her that her mother's health had gotten worse and she had collapsed. Michelle rushed to the hospital and said her final goodbye to her mother. She decided to stay with her father to arrange the funeral. When she called Paul, he said he couldn't leave work suddenly. He missed the wake and only made it to the funeral, but it seemed like he hadn't prepared to dress appropriately for the occasion. I had to quickly find him clothes to wear, but he complained a lot, saying I should have done it earlier. With all the sadness and business of arranging the funeral, I couldn't handle Paul's complaints, so I ignored them. But he didn't seem to appreciate that and stayed in a bad mood. Since then, it feels like we've been arguing more in our marriage. It's normal to have disagreements after being married for 3 years, but lately, Paul has been picking fights aggressively. He's always telling me what to do and taking charge. I got tired of it and tried saying no a few times, but he didn't know where things were in the house. So simple tasks took a long time. Plus, he complained while trying to help, making an even bigger mess. Eventually, I realized it's easier if I just do everything myself. I didn't always do everything Paul asked. I handled some things myself to make my life easier. I mentioned preparing for my mom's first death anniversary gathering next week. Okay, I said, and Paul grumbled, oh, I have an important meeting that day. What should I do? I've told you about this gathering well ahead of time. How could he suddenly say he couldn't make it? What? You're not coming. Paul let out a heavy sigh. It's not that, but it'll be hard to leave everything to my subordinates, you know. He seemed pleased with his recent promotion and often talked about his junior team members. I felt like sighing right along with him. Please make arrangements for it, all right? I stressed. It was the day before my mom's first death anniversary gathering. When I returned home from work, Paul was sulking in the living room, drinking beer. Sorry, I'm late. Had to do overtime, he mumbled. I figured he was upset because I was late, delaying dinner. I've been waiting here for an hour, just as I expected. But it's only an hour, right? If he couldn't cook, he could have bought something. I did tell him when I'd be home. He could have taken some initiative. Holding back my frustration, I handed him a takeout box. I thought cooking would take too long, so I got this on my way home. In response, Paul slammed his beer glass on the table. Takeout again. Aren't you slacking off a bit too much lately? The last time I got takeout was about 2 weeks ago. Sure, I've been busy, and maybe I haven't been cooking every day, but still. I make sure to eat balanced meals and avoid relying on packaged food too much. Even though I don't think I deserve criticism, as I debated whether to respond, Paul, misunderstanding, added insult to injury. Can't argue when it's true, huh? Do your chores properly. You've been coming home late and claiming overtime. Maybe you're out cheating. Paul's words ignited the resentment I've been feeling. If you know I'm working late, the least you could do is make dinner. You don't have to cook. Picking up takeout isn't that hard. I always tell you when I'll be late, and even with my busy schedule, I handle all the household chores. There's no need for that attitude. Paul glared at me. You're 3 years older, remember? I could have married a younger woman, but I chose you, Paul said, expecting gratitude and obedience. You should be thankful and listen to me. No one else would want you, so you'd be in trouble if I left, right? Did he really just say that? I was furious and couldn't hold back. If you wanted a younger woman, you should have married one before we got together. I asked if you were okay with me being older, and you said yes. That's why we got married. Even without you, I can manage my life. Paul laughed mockingly. Fine, let's get a divorce. With that, he grabbed his beer and takeout and went to his room. We've argued before, but this was different. I was done with him. I decided to eat my takeout to calm down. Maybe he was just hungry and annoyed, I thought as I ate. But I couldn't shake the disbelief that this was happening the day before my mom's death anniversary. After a while, I called out to Paul from outside his room. We need to leave by 8 a.m. tomorrow, so I'll wake you up around 7. There was no response, but I felt he was awake. With that said, I went to bed. The next morning, when I woke up early, Paul was already gone. The bags I packed were still in the room. He hadn't left for the gathering without me. Where did he go? I called his phone, but he didn't pick up. He didn't respond to my texts either. With no other option, I left a voicemail and started getting ready to leave alone. I finally reached Paul while waiting for the train at the station. I have a meeting. Can't leave it to my juniors, was all he said before the call ended abruptly. I was overwhelmed with a mix of anger and resignation, feeling stunned and bewildered. Before I could dwell on it further, the train arrived, burdened with luggage meant for two. I boarded alone. Upon reaching my father's house, he asked anxiously, "Where's Paul?" Seeing my father's sadness since my mother's passing, I didn't want to add to his worries. Taking a deep breath, I forced a smile and replied, "Sorry, he got called into an important meeting." He was supposed to come, but with his recent promotion, it sounded crucial, so I encouraged him to prioritize it. My father nodded in understanding. "I understand. He's working hard. It's disappointing not to see him, but your mother would understand. Let him know he's always welcome here." His words stung a bit, but I maintained my smile throughout the day. With no word from Paul and the night growing late, I didn't reach out to him either. Planning to stay the night and return home the next day as planned, I saw no need to contact him. Though it felt childish, I thought about making him his favorite dish, hamburgers, tomorrow. With that in mind, I went to bed. The next day, I left my father's house and got home around noon. Before going grocery shopping, I wanted to drop off my bags. As I entered the living room, I saw Paul had left dirty laundry lying around, as usual. I sighed, thinking he still hadn't learned how to use the washing machine, and tossed his laundry in with mine. Taking a break and returning to the living room, I noticed something on the table. As I got closer, I couldn't believe what I saw: divorce papers already signed by him. Why? I stared at the papers in disbelief. Was this his way of asking for a divorce? I grabbed my phone from my bag. It should be Paul's lunch break. I wasn't sure if he'd answer, but to my surprise, he did. As soon as I called, I asked, "What's the meaning of these divorce papers?" Paul laughed and replied, "What's there to question? It's exactly what it seems. I don't want an older wife who won't handle household chores. That's why I want a divorce. If we split, I can find a younger wife. After all, a wife is like a status symbol, right? I can't boast about you because you're older. It's tough when my team asks about you, and avoiding the topic isn't easy." I was speechless, unable to respond. "If you want to avoid a divorce, start doing your chores properly. I'll be home as usual today, so make sure to get some beer, alright? If you disagree, take the divorce papers to court. It's your call." With that, he hung up, leaving me in shock, unable to utter a word. Paul probably assumed I'd comply if he said that. I only did the chores because I disliked having to ask or beg him. He must have believed I did it to keep him from leaving me. Perhaps he thought I wouldn't stand up to him because he's the dominant one. Being married to a younger husband might seem glamorous to some, but in reality, there's nothing remarkable about it. I often emphasized his youth, but in truth, he's average in looks, personality, and income. There's nothing particularly special about him. Labeling him as younger was simply convenient. When we married, I worried about the age gap, but now that we're both in our 30s and he's just 3 years younger, it doesn't seem significant. If there were a larger age difference between us, perhaps I feel differently. It's disheartening to constantly be labeled as the older wife when we're practically the same age. Determined to take action, I grabbed my bag and headed straight to the family court. Submitting the divorce papers brought a sense of relief, signaling the end of our relationship. I realized I could live without Paul. With newfound freedom, I felt lighter and decided to request a few days of paid leave from my boss. Luckily, work had just slowed down, and he granted me a week off. Now divorced, I needed to organize my belongings. With minimal possessions, cleaning up was a breeze. I stored larger items in a storage unit, packed essentials and clothes in my car, and spontaneously decided to visit a hot spring resort. Since it was the off-season, I found a cheap hotel for my stay without any hassle. Driving with excitement, I indulged in the hot springs and relaxed in my room, only to be interrupted by a ringing phone. "Michelle, I asked you to get beer, didn't I? Where are you?" It was Paul's usual time to return home. I chuckled, recalling his words. "I'm at a hot spring resort." "What? A hot spring resort? Why? What's going on? Didn't you say to file the divorce papers if I didn't agree with you?" I pictured my ex-husband flustered, and my laughter grew. "Wait, did you really file them?" "Yes, I did." "Why?" "It was your suggestion, Paul." "Have you forgotten what you said earlier?" His tone became perturbed. "Wait, are you joking? When you say hot spring resort, do you mean some nearby spa? If so, I'll get dinner, so come home soon." I couldn't help but laugh at the sudden, seemingly caring tone as he claimed to be a considerate husband. It took about an hour and a half of driving. There's even an outdoor natural hot spring. It's so relaxing. I hope it doesn't rain tomorrow. Since you're going to get your own dinner, I've already packed my things so you won't have to worry about me coming back. Take care of yourself. Paul begged me to return, but I had no intention of going back. You're the one who initiated the divorce. Have you forgotten? It was obvious you were using divorce as a threat to control me. I told you, I can manage without you. Now that you've divorced your older wife, go find a younger one. Whether you can or not, I don't know." Paul fell silent. "It's none of my business, but you should consider moving out of that apartment too." Finally, Paul spoke again. "Why should I?" His voice was barely audible. "Think about your income. You'll go broke soon if you keep living there. You can't clean, do laundry, or cook. You'll need housekeeping and dining out, right? That costs money. It would be a problem if most of your salary went into rent. You thought you were the provider, but my salary is nearly double yours. You never provided for me. If anything, it was the other way around. Also, you were overconfident just because of one junior. But did you know I have multiple juniors under me and even more under them?" I don't usually talk about work because Paul gets moody, but I outrank him in both position and salary. You'd think he'd notice after living together, but it seemed like he was fine finding out now. Perhaps Paul, being dominant and proud, kept his ego intact by looking down on me. Now that he can't, he must feel defeated. I've shattered his pride as payback for all these years. The reason I handled household chores without complaining, despite your domineering behavior, was partly because you were younger and I cut you some slack, and partly because it was too much hassle to ask you for anything. It's not like I needed you to stay with me. I was just taking care of your needs along with mine. So when you said, do the chores or we divorce, of course I chose divorce. We're strangers now. Goodbye then. I said what I needed to and hung up. Feeling refreshed, I savored the hotel's food afterward. As expected, Paul sought reconciliation, but I replied with a smile. "I'm older than you. I'm sure you don't want me back." Presumably, he wasn't successful with younger women. Eventually, Paul gave up and moved out of the apartment. I hired a lawyer for the division of assets, demanding more to compensate for the burden of household chores imposed on me until now. Paul, being cheap, didn't hire a lawyer, so I had the upper hand. With my lawyer, we reached an agreement with favorable conditions for me. By the way, it seems Paul's only junior had been complaining to others about his poor leadership, to the extent that he couldn't even see him as a boss. Paul overheard this, and they're currently in dispute. He should have realized how crucial it is to support your own junior. As for me, I've been offered a position at our overseas headquarters. I initially declined due to the current circumstances and out of consideration for Paul. But I finally decided to seize the opportunity. I'm now preparing for my transition. Though I've caused my father some worry, we've started practicing video calls to stay connected when I'm abroad. I'm content knowing I'll be pursuing the job I've dreamt of since childhood. It's time to give it my all.